In Victorian England, some of the hardest working people in the country were also the most invisible. They saw everything. They knew every secret, and one wrong word could destroy their entire lives. Here's what it was really like to be a servant in a grand Victorian mansion. Before we go back in time together, if you're enjoying settling in for the night with a bit of history, consider hitting subscribe. And I'm curious, where in the world are you listening from right now, and what time is it there? Drop it in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, get comfortable, adjust your pillow, pull that blanket up just a little higher. Feel how soft everything is, how warm, how safe. Because where we're going, comfort was something you created for other people, never for yourself. The bell is what wakes you, not a gentle chime, not a polite ring, a sharp, insistent clanging that cuts through the darkness of your attic room like a knife through cold butter. You've been asleep for maybe 4 hours. Your body aches in places you didn't know existed before you came to Ashworth House 3 weeks ago. Your shoulders, your knees, the small of your back. Muscles you never even thought about now scream at you every morning. The room is pitch black. Winter mornings in 1885 don't come with sunrise at this hour. Just darkness, cold, and that damned bell. Your eyes open to nothing. Just darkness so thick you could cut it with a bread knife. The only sensation you're aware of is the rough wool blanket against your chin and the freezing air attacking every exposed bit of skin. Your breath comes out in small white puffs, though you can't see them. You can feel them, though. Feel the warmth leaving your lungs and immediately getting swallowed by the cold. Next to you in the narrow bed, Mary Brennan is already stirring. Mary's been in service for 11 years. Started as a scullery maid at 12, worked her way up to housemaid by 15, and now at 23 she's one of the senior housemaids. She's also your roommate, your teacher, and though you're still too new to say it out loud, possibly your only friend in this massive stone monster of a house. "Up," Mary whispers. Her voice is thick with sleep, but there's an edge of urgency in it. Now, before the second bell. You don't know what happens after the second bell, you haven't dared to ask. But the way Mary says it, the way her body tenses even in the darkness, tells you everything you need to know. You don't want to find out. Your feet hit the floor, and immediately you understand why the older maids warned you to sleep with your stockings on. The floorboards are so cold they actually burn, like walking on ice, like stepping onto a frozen pond in the dead of winter. Except this pond is inside a house that supposedly belongs to one of the wealthiest families in the county. Here's something they don't tell you about grand Victorian mansions. The beauty, the warmth, the comfort, that's all reserved for upstairs. The parts where the family lives, the parts where guests are entertained. The servants' quarters might as well be a different building entirely. Different world, really. Same roof, two completely separate realities existing in parallel. You fumble in the darkness for the pitcher of water on the small nightstand. When you pour it into the basin, you can actually hear tiny shards of ice clinking against the porcelain. The water had frozen overnight. Again. This is the 3rd time this week. Mary lights a candle stub, just for a moment, just long enough for you both to splash freezing water on your faces and pull on your work dresses. The dark ones, coarse fabric, practical. The kind of dress that says I'm about to spend the next 4 hours on my knees scrubbing grates and hauling coal. The pretty ones, the starched white aprons and neat caps, those come later, after the dirty work is done, after you've made yourself invisible again. You have exactly 8 minutes from the time the bell rings until you're expected to be in the servants' hall. 8 minutes to wash, dress, make your bed, and navigate 3 flights of narrow back stairs in near total darkness. The Ashworth family has gaslight in their quarters, even some of those fancy new electric lights in the main dining room. The servants get candles when they can afford them on their own wages. "Your cap's crooked," Mary murmurs as you both reach the second landing. She doesn't stop moving, just reaches back and adjusts it with the practiced ease of someone who's done this 1,000 times before. Mrs. Whitmore notices everything. Mrs. Whitmore, the housekeeper. You haven't spoken to her more than a dozen times since you arrived, but you've learned to recognize the sound of her keys from 3 rooms away. Every housekeeper in England, as far as you can tell, carries a set of keys on a special chain attached to her belt. They call it a chatelaine. Mrs. Whitmore's keys number somewhere around 40, and when she walks they produce a distinctive jingling that strikes fear into the hearts of every junior maid in the house. Those keys open everything: the linen closets, the pantries, the china cupboards, the cellar doors. Every locked space in the house falls under Mrs. Whitmore's domain. She knows where every napkin is, every candle, every bar of soap. She keeps ledgers, counts everything, and if something goes missing, even something as small as a single sugar cube, she will find out, and someone will answer for it. The servants' hall is already half full when you arrive. 15 people crowded around a long wooden table, their breath still visible in the early morning cold. The fire hasn't been lit yet. Of course it hasn't. That's your job. Or rather, it's your job to help with the 10 other fireplaces scattered throughout the main house, the ones that need to be blazing by the time the family wakes at 8. At the head of the table sits Mr. Finch, the butler, king of the lower world, at least on the male side. He's maybe 50, with steel grey hair, and a posture so rigid you'd think someone had replaced his spine with an iron rod. Mr. Finch doesn't smile. Mr. Finch doesn't joke. Mr. Finch speaks in measured sentences that carry the weight of absolute authority, and when Mr. Finch gives an instruction, you follow it. No questions. No hesitation, not if you want to keep your position. Next to him, leaving one chair empty between them because hierarchy matters even in seating arrangements, sits Mrs. Whitmore. Her face is impossible to read. Not cruel exactly, just severe, like someone who has spent so many years maintaining perfect order that any other expression would feel like a breach of duty. You slide onto the bench at the far end of the table near the door. That's where the junior servants sit, the ones lowest in the pecking order. The scullery maid is there, a girl even younger than you, maybe 13, with raw red hands that tell the story of too many hours in cold dishwater. Next to her is one of the footman's assistants, a skinny boy who can't seem to keep his eyes open. Breakfast is bread. A slice each. Some tea, weak enough to see through, shared between the lot of you. Those who arrived first got butter. You didn't arrive first. You'll remember that for tomorrow. You chew slowly, trying to make it last. Trying not to think about what the Ashworth family will be eating in a few hours. Fresh eggs, bacon, kippers, toast with marmalade, fresh fruit, even in winter. Coffee served in delicate china cups. The leftover scraps from their breakfast will make their way down to the servants' hall eventually, but that's hours away. And by then, you'll have already lit 8 fireplaces, emptied a dozen chamber pots, and hauled more buckets of hot water than you can count. At exactly 10 minutes past 5, Mrs. Whitmore stands. The scraping of her chair silences any remaining whispers. Every spine straightens. Every eye finds a spot on the table to study intently. "Today's schedule," she announces, her voice crisp as the winter air outside. "There will be guests arriving for dinner this evening. The blue guest room will need preparing. Extra attention to the formal rooms. I expect to see my reflection in every polished surface before noon." She doesn't look at anyone in particular, but you feel her gaze sweep across the table like a searchlight. "Any servant found idle will answer to me personally." That's it. That's the morning address. In a household of nearly 30 staff, Mrs. Whitmore manages to communicate everything you need to know in under 60 seconds. The rest you'll figure out as you go, following Mary's lead, watching, learning, trying not to make any mistakes that could cost you everything. Because that's the thing about this job. It's not just a job, it's your entire life, your home, your food, your future. Everything depends on staying in the good graces of the household. One serious mistake, one accusation of dishonesty, one moment of being too slow or too visible or too anything, and you're out. Not just out of a job, out on the street. No reference, no character, no future. Back home, in the tiny village where you grew up, your mother cried when you left for service. Not because she was sad to see you go, because she was relieved. One less mouth to feed, one less body in an already crowded cottage. Your father had died 3 winters ago. Consumption. By the time your mother found a position for you through the local registry, you'd been eating nothing but cabbage soup and prayers for nearly a year. This is better, even with the cold. Even with the aching muscles and the 4 a.m. wake-up calls and the constant gnawing fear of doing something wrong. At least here, you eat every day. At least here, you have a bed. Shared, yes. Cramped, certainly. But a bed, with a blanket, and a roof that doesn't leak. That's the bargain. That's what every servant in every grand house across England understands. You trade your freedom for security, your identity for a uniform, your name sometimes quite literally for a title. Some households even rename their servants to avoid confusion. If the last housemaid was named Sarah, you become Sarah too. Your own name is irrelevant. You're a function, a role, a pair of hands and a pair of feet designed to accomplish tasks while remaining completely invisible. But you're getting ahead of yourself. The philosophy comes later. Right now, you have fireplaces to light. Mary is already on her feet, heading toward the door that leads to the main house. You follow, your bread barely settled in your stomach, your fingers still clumsy with cold. The servants' corridors are narrow, the ceilings are low. Everything about these spaces is designed to remind you that you're meant to be neither seen nor heard by anyone important. The main house is a different world entirely. When you push through the green baize door that separates the servants' wing from the family quarters, it's like stepping into another country. The ceilings soar. The walls are covered in silk paper, deep crimson and gold. Paintings line the hallways, portraits of Ashworths going back generations, their eyes following you as you move silently across the polished floors. And the silence, that's the strangest part. The house is asleep, or seems to be, but you know it's not really empty. Somewhere upstairs, behind heavy wooden doors, the family slumbers in feather beds with thick quilts and warming pans. They'll wake in a few hours, comfortable and rested, completely unaware of the small army of workers who've been moving through their homes since before dawn. Your job, quite literally, is to make magic happen, to light fires without being seen, to clean rooms without leaving a trace, to ensure that when Lady Ashworth opens her eyes at 8:30, the house is already warm, the curtains are drawn back just so, and a pot of hot water is waiting for her morning wash. She shouldn't have to think about how any of it happened. It should simply be done. Magic. That's what the upper class calls it when they're feeling generous. Magic and good breeding and the natural order of things. But you know the truth now. There's no magic. Just you and Mary and the 30 other people who call the servants' quarters home. 30 pairs of hands working 16 hours a day, 6.5 days a week, to maintain the illusion. Today, you've been assigned to help with the ground floor fireplaces. Yesterday it was chamber pots. Tomorrow it might be the endless task of polishing silver until your reflection stares back at you from every surface. You've learned not to ask why. Orders come from Mrs. Whitmore through the senior maids, and you follow them. That's all there is to it. The first fireplace is in the morning room. It's a lovely space, if you're being honest. Pale blue walls, comfortable chairs arranged before tall windows that will soon catch the weak winter sunlight. A piano sits in the corner, draped with a fringed cloth. Fresh flowers, even in January, fill a crystal vase on the side table. You don't know where the flowers come from, don't know who cuts them, who arranges them, who pays for them. That's someone else's concern. Your concern is the fireplace, and more specifically the coal scuttle sitting beside it. Mary hands you a metal ashpan and a small brush. "Watch first," she whispers, "then do exactly as I do." She kneels before the cold hearth with a grace that comes from years of practice. First, she spreads an old sheet on the floor to catch any mess. Then she begins removing the ashes from yesterday's fire carefully, methodically, without raising any dust. Each movement is precise, economical, no wasted motion, no unnecessary sound. The ashes go into the pan. Later they'll be taken to the kitchen to be sifted. The small pieces of unburned coal, the cinders, will be saved and used to light tomorrow's fires. Nothing in a Victorian household goes to waste. Not coal, not candle stubs, not leftover food, not even the time servants spend standing still when they could be working. Once the ashes are cleared, Mary takes a small brush and sweeps out the grate. Then comes the black lead. It's a thick, dark paste that smells of iron and something faintly chemical. She applies it to the metal grate and fire surround with a cloth, working it into every crevice, then buffs it to a high shine with a different brush. "The family notices this," she murmurs without looking up. Might not know what they're looking at, but they notice when it's not done. That's the thing about being invisible. When you do your job right, no one sees you at all. But let one thing slip, leave one smudge, and suddenly everyone's asking questions. She's right. You've seen it happen. Not to yourself, not yet, but to others. A footman dismissed for wearing scuffed shoes to dinner service. A kitchen maid sent packing for burning the toast. The standards in a house like this are impossibly high, and the consequences for failing to meet them are swift and absolute. When Mary finishes polishing, she begins laying the new fire. Crumpled newspaper first, then small sticks of kindling arranged in a careful pyramid, then larger pieces of coal balanced on top. She strikes a match, touches it to the paper, and watches as the flame catches and begins to spread. "Don't leave until you're sure it's caught proper," she says. "Last thing you want is for the fire to go out and have to be relit." Mrs. Whitmore counts the matches. She counts the matches. Of course she does. You're starting to realize that in this house everything is counted. Every lump of coal, every candle, every bar of soap, every single thing that costs money is monitored, measured, and accounted for. Waste is a sin. Carelessness is a dismissible offence. You watch the flames dance for a moment, mesmerized by their warmth. It feels almost criminal to be this close to heat and comfort when you know that in a few minutes you'll be back in the cold hallways, moving on to the next fireplace, the next task, the next small miracle that needs performing before the family stirs. "Come on," Mary says, already gathering her supplies. "3 more on this floor, then up to the bedrooms, and we need to be finished before the family comes down for breakfast. If they see us, we're done for." You nod, following her out of the morning room and into the corridor. The house is still quiet, still dark in places, the January dawn barely beginning to lighten the windows. But somewhere upstairs, someone is stirring. You can feel it. A subtle shift in the atmosphere. A door opening and closing. Footsteps, muffled by carpet, moving toward the bathroom. You freeze. Mary freezes too. For a long moment, neither of you breathes. Then Mary grabs your arm and pulls you into an alcove behind a tall potted fern. You press yourself against the wall, heart hammering as the footsteps grow closer. A figure appears at the top of the stairs, male, tall, moving with the easy confidence of someone who has never once had to consider whether he belongs somewhere. It's Master James, the eldest son, 22 years old, heir to the Ashworth fortune, and according to the whispers in the servants' hall, the reason the last housemaid in your position was dismissed. He pauses at the top of the stairs, yawns, scratches his head, and turns back toward his room. The danger passes. You release a breath you didn't realize you were holding. "Close," Mary murmurs. "Too close. If he'd seen us, we'd have to explain what we were doing here at this hour, and then we'd be behind schedule, and then Mrs. Whitmore would want to know why." You nod, still shaking slightly. This is what life is like in a grand house. Constant vigilance, constant awareness of where you are, where the family is, where you're supposed to be and not supposed to be at any given moment. The back stairs, the service corridors, the narrow passageways hidden behind the walls, those are your domain. The main rooms, the grand staircases, the family quarters, those belong to a different species entirely. As you make your way to the next fireplace, a sound catches your ear. Familiar now, but still capable of making your stomach drop. The bells. In the servants' hall, mounted high on the wall near the ceiling, hangs a board fitted with 24 brass bells. Each one is connected by a complex network of wires and pulleys to a different room in the house. When someone pulls a bell rope in the library, a specific bell rings downstairs. When someone pulls the cord in the master bedroom, a different bell sounds. An experienced servant can tell from the tone alone which room is calling. Mrs. Whitmore, they say, can identify any bell in the house from 3 floors away, even while carrying on a conversation about menu planning. It's like having ears everywhere, eyes everywhere. The house itself seems to be watching, listening, waiting to catch you in a moment of laziness or inattention. Right now the bells are silent. The family isn't awake yet, but soon they will be, and when they ring, someone will answer. Instantly, without question, without hesitation. Because that's the job. That's the life. You exist to respond to their needs before they even realize they have them. To light fires they'll never see being built. To clean rooms they'll never see being cleaned. To carry water, lay out clothes, prepare meals, and manage 1,000 small details of daily life so that the people upstairs never have to think about any of it. You are invisible. You are essential. You are replaceable. And as the cold winter morning stretches ahead of you, filled with labour and fear and the constant drumbeat of duty, you realize that this, all of this, is only the beginning. There are 8 more fireplaces waiting, a dozen chamber pots to empty, beds to make, water to carry, floors to scrub, silver to polish. The day has barely started. and somewhere in the back of your mind, a small voice whispers the question you've been trying not to ask yourself since the moment you arrived at Ashworth House. How long can you survive like this? The morning room fireplace is blazing nicely now. You've moved on to the library, then the drawing room, then the small parlour where Lady Ashworth takes her morning correspondence. Each fire follows the same ritual: ashes out, grate polished, kindling arranged, coal balanced, match struck, flame caught. By the time you finish the last one, your knees are black with soot, and your back feels like someone has been using it as a washboard. The muscles across your shoulders have knotted into something resembling rope. Your hands, already chapped from yesterday's work, are now streaked with black lead and coal dust. But the fires are lit, all of them, and you've managed to stay invisible. Mary checks her small pocket watch, a treasured possession she inherited from her grandmother. 7:15. Good. We've got time. Time for what, you want to ask? But you're learning that questions are a luxury in this house. Better to watch, better to follow, better to figure things out on your own rather than risk looking stupid or slow. The answer becomes clear soon enough. Time for breakfast. The real breakfast. The one where the servants actually sit down and eat something more substantial than a slice of bread. Back through the green baize door, back into the narrow corridors of the servants' wing. The temperature drops immediately, not as cold as the attic, but noticeably cooler than the rooms you just left. The family's comfort doesn't extend to these hallways. Why would it? They never see them. The servants' hall is transformed. The long table that held 15 shivering people an hour ago now seats nearly 30, and the smell of actual food fills the air. Porridge, bacon, toast, tea that looks like it might actually contain some tea. But here's the thing nobody told you about. There are rules about where you sit. Not just any rules, a whole system. A hierarchy within a hierarchy, wheels within wheels, ranks and positions and careful gradations of status that determine everything from where you sleep to what you eat, to whether anyone will bother learning your name. At the head of the table sits Mr. Finch, the butler, still ramrod straight, still expressionless. A cup of tea steams before him, the good china, not the chipped cups the rest of you use. To his right, in the place of honour, sits Mrs. Whitmore with her ring of keys. They don't speak to each other. They don't need to. They've been running this household together for 15 years, and their communication happens in glances and subtle nods that you can't begin to interpret. Below them, arranged in careful order of precedence, sit the upper servants. The cook, Mrs. Hartley, a stout woman with flour perpetually dusted on her forearms. The lady's maid, Miss Perkins, whose job it is to dress Lady Ashworth and maintain her extensive wardrobe. The valet, Mr. Crawford, who performs the same service for Lord Ashworth. The head housemaid, the head footman, the senior kitchen staff. These people eat well. Their plates are full. Their tea is hot. They have butter for their toast and sugar for their porridge. They sit at the upper end of the table near the fire in chairs that actually have cushions. Then there's a gap, a visible physical gap in the seating arrangement, almost like a moat separating one kingdom from another. Below that gap sit the lower servants, the junior housemaids, the footmen, the kitchen maids, the scullery maid, the hall boy, you. Your end of the table is furthest from the fire. Your chairs are plain wooden benches. Your porridge is thinner, your bacon fattier, your tea weaker. Not because there isn't enough food to go around, there's plenty, but because this is how things are done. This is how they've always been done. The upper servants get the best of everything, and the lower servants get what's left. It's a copy of the world upstairs, you realise. The family takes the best, and the servants get what remains. And within the servant class the pattern repeats itself. Upper servants first, lower servants second. It's hierarchies all the way down. Mary slides onto the bench beside you, her plate already filled. She's been here long enough to know exactly where to sit, exactly how much to take, exactly how to navigate these invisible boundaries without causing offence. "Eat quick," she murmurs. "Upper servants leave in 10 minutes. Once they go, we can talk." You don't understand what she means until it happens. At exactly 7:45, Mr. Finch sets down his teacup. The sound is almost imperceptible, but every upper servant at the table responds to it like a signal. They rise, almost in unison, and file out of the servants' hall through a door you hadn't noticed before. "They're going to the housekeeper's room," Mary explains once they've gone. "The upper servants take their pudding and cheese in there, away from the lower staff. It's called the Pug's Parlour, though nobody seems to know why. They have their own space, their own rituals, their own world within a world. It's like that everywhere," Mary says, spooning porridge into her mouth between words. "The butler doesn't do footman's work, the housekeeper doesn't polish silver. Everyone has their own job, their own place, their own set of rules. Cross those lines and you're in trouble." You nod, trying to absorb it all. The structure is dizzying. Back in your village there was the squire and there was everyone else. Simple, clear. Here there are layers upon layers of rank and privilege, each one with its own customs and expectations. "Mr. Finch," you venture quietly. "What's he actually like?" Mary's spoon pauses halfway to her mouth. She glances around, making sure no one is close enough to hear. "He's fair," she says finally. "Strict as iron, but fair. Does his job better than anyone I've ever seen. Runs this house like a general runs an army. Every footman answers to him. Every piece of silver in that house passes through his hands. He knows where every bottle of wine is kept, what year it was bottled, which guests prefer which vintage. Lord Ashworth trusts him completely." She lowers her voice even further. "But here's the thing about Mr. Finch. He knows everything, everything that happens in this house, upstairs or down. He sees things nobody else sees, hears things nobody else hears. If you're slacking off, if you're talking to someone you shouldn't be talking to, if you're taking something that doesn't belong to you, he'll know. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually." You swallow hard. The porridge suddenly tastes like paste. "The keys," you say, remembering the heavy ring that hangs at his waist. "He has keys too, like Mrs. Whitmore. Different keys. He has opened the wine cellar, the silver pantry, the master's study, the valuables, things that could be stolen, things that matter." Mary shrugs. "Mrs. Whitmore controls the household. Mr. Finch controls the wealth. It's a partnership, you realise. Butler and housekeeper working together, running the entire operation from below stairs. The family upstairs might own the house, might pay the wages, might technically be in charge. But the day-to-day running of things, that belongs to Mr. Finch and Mrs. Whitmore. They are the brain of the household. Everyone else is just muscle, and you are the lowest muscle of all." "What about Mrs. Whitmore?" you ask. "Mary, she terrifies me." Mary actually laughs at that, a quiet sound quickly stifled. "She terrifies everyone. That's her job. But listen." She leans closer. "I've been here 3 years. In that time, I've seen Mrs. Whitmore dismiss 4 girls. Every single one of them deserved it. Lazy or dishonest or talking back when they shouldn't. She's hard, yes, but she's not cruel. Do your work, keep your head down, don't steal anything, don't get too friendly with the footman, and you'll be fine. Don't get too friendly with the footman. You file that away for later. There's a story there, you're certain, but now isn't the time to ask. The clock on the wall shows 7:55. In 5 minutes, the lower servants will need to be back at their posts, scattered throughout the house to continue the endless work of maintaining a mansion for people who barely acknowledge their existence. You shovel the last of your porridge into your mouth and drain your tea. Cold now, but you don't care. Calories are calories. Warmth is warmth. You take what you can get. Mary leads you back upstairs for the next round of duties. The family is stirring now. You can hear movement above, footsteps on carpeted floors, the distant sound of a door closing. Somewhere, a bell rings, then another, then a third. The house is waking up. The real work is about to begin. Your assignment for the next 3 hours is chamber pots. Yes, chamber pots. The porcelain containers that wealthy Victorians use when they don't want to walk all the way to the water closet in the middle of the night. Every bedroom has one, usually tucked discreetly under the bed or behind a screen, and every morning someone has to empty them. That someone today is you. There's a rhythm to it, Mary explains as she hands you a covered pail. The family leaves their rooms for breakfast around 8:30. That's when you go in, quick. Quiet, get the pot, empty it in the slop pail, rinse it, put it back. You should be in and out in under 2 minutes. Under 2 minutes. To enter a bedroom, locate the chamber pot, carry it to the servants' washroom, empty it, clean it, and return it to its proper place. All without making a sound, all without being seen. What if they're still in the room, you ask? Mary looks at you like you've just asked what colour the sky is. Then you don't go in. You wait. You come back later. Under no circumstances do you enter a family member's bedroom while they're in it. That's not just a rule. That's the rule. Break it and you're gone. No warning. No second chance. Gone. You nod quickly. The message is received. The first bedroom is Lady Ashworth's private chamber. It's connected to the master bedroom by a shared dressing room, a common arrangement in wealthy households. You press your ear to the door and listen. Silence. Good. The door opens without a sound. Someone, probably Mary herself on a previous morning, has oiled the hinges to perfection. You slip inside and immediately your breath catches. The room is beautiful. Beautiful in a way you've never experienced before. The walls are covered in pale silk, hand-painted with delicate flowers. The bed is massive, a 4-poster draped with velvet curtains, piled high with pillows and quilts. The carpet beneath your feet is so soft it feels like walking on clouds. A fire burns in the marble fireplace, the one you lit hours ago, casting golden light across everything. And the smell, not the damp wool and coal dust of the servants' quarters. Something else. Lavender, maybe. Rosewater. Something expensive and lovely that seems to float in the air itself. You could stand here all day drinking it in, but you have 90 seconds left. The chamber pot is where Mary said it would be, behind a Chinese screen in the corner. You grab it, cover firmly in place, and hurry back to the servants' corridor. The slop pail is waiting in a small closet near the back stairs. Empty, rinse, return. 87 seconds. Not bad. But here's the thing about chamber pots. They're the most humiliating part of the job, yes, but they're also the most intimate. When you empty Lady Ashworth's chamber pot, when you handle this most private aspect of her daily existence, you are closer to her than her own children ever get. You know things about her that nobody else knows. The medicine bottle on her nightstand, the half-written letter on her desk, the small portrait tucked behind the mirror, a young man in military uniform who doesn't appear anywhere else in the house. These are secrets, private moments, glimpses into a life that you serve but can never be part of, and you must never, ever speak of them to anyone. That's the first rule of personal service, and you learn it without anyone having to tell you. What happens in the family's rooms stays in the family's rooms. You see nothing, you hear nothing, you remember nothing. Your discretion is absolute, not because you're asked for it, but because you understand on some deep instinctive level that this is the price of being allowed into these spaces at all. The other bedrooms follow the same pattern. Master James's room, the one you saw him emerge from this morning, is surprisingly untidy. Clothes on the floor, books stacked haphazardly, an overflowing ashtray by the window. Miss Catherine's room, the younger daughter, is pristine, but cold somehow. No personal touches, no warmth, like a display in a shop window rather than a place where someone actually lives. By the time you've finished all the chambers, your arms are aching from carrying the heavy slop pail up and down the back stairs. The pail goes to the outdoor privy to be emptied properly, a job that falls to the hall boy, thank God. Even in the servant hierarchy, there's always someone below you. The rest of the morning blurs together. You help Mary with the bed making. Sheets pulled tight, hospital corners, not a wrinkle in sight. Pillows fluffed and arranged just so. Quilts straightened, curtains adjusted, water pitchers filled. The family's beds are remade completely every day, even though they've only been slept in for a few hours. Nothing here is done by halves. Between tasks, Mary continues your education. The rules, the do's and don'ts, the 1,000 small ways a servant can get into trouble without ever meaning to. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't look the family in the eye. Don't laugh in the corridors. Don't run, even if you're late. Don't carry anything without covering it with a cloth. Don't use the main stairs. Don't enter a room if you can hear voices inside. Don't touch the family's books. Don't touch the family's letters. Don't touch anything that isn't specifically part of your job. And above all, don't be seen. The perfect servant, Mary says, stripping the sheets from Miss Catherine's bed, is invisible. You do your work, and when you leave, it's like you were never there. The fire's lit, the room's clean, the water's fresh, but there's no sign of how it happened. Magic. Magic. That word again. The wealthy think their comfort appears by magic, and you are learning to be the magician they never see. The hours pass. Noon comes and goes. The servant's dinner is heavier than breakfast, a proper meal of meat and vegetables eaten quickly in the hall before the afternoon duties begin. You sit in your assigned spot at the lower end of the table, eating food that was probably on the family's plates last night, now reheated and served to the staff. Nobody complains. Nobody even thinks about complaining. This is the deal. This is the life. You work yourself half to death 6.5 days a week, and in return, you get a roof over your head and food in your belly. For millions of people outside these walls, that would be a dream. You try to remember that. Try to remind yourself of the village you left behind, the cold cottage with the leaking roof, the nights when there was nothing to eat but watered-down soup. This is better. This is security. This is a future of a sort. Even if that future looks like more of the same, stretching ahead of you for years and decades, rising before dawn, working until you drop, sleeping in a cold attic room, repeating it all again tomorrow, but you're getting ahead of yourself again. The afternoon is waiting. There are silver teaspoons that need polishing, apparently. Dozens of them. And you've been told you'll be helping the parlour maid with the afternoon dusting in the formal rooms. Different tasks, same purpose. Keep the machine running. Keep the magic happening. Stay invisible. You push back from the table, legs aching, hands raw, mind spinning with all the rules and ranks and rituals you're trying to absorb. Just keep going. That's all you can do. Just keep going. The silver pantry is a small room off the butler's corridor, lined floor to ceiling with shelves, and on those shelves, arranged with military precision, sits more silver than you've ever seen in your life. Candlesticks, serving platters, soup tureens, tea sets, cruet stands, fish knives, cake forks, asparagus tongs. Things you don't even have names for, each one polished to such a high shine that you can see your own startled reflection staring back at you. "Sit," says Agnes, the parlour maid who's been assigned to supervise you. She's maybe 25, with quick hands and a permanent furrow between her brows. Watch first, then copy. She picks up a teaspoon from the pile on the table. It looks clean to you, spotless even. But Agnes holds it up to the light, squints at it, and shakes her head. See that? That dull spot near the handle? Fingerprint. From yesterday's tea service? Probably one of the footmen. She dips a soft cloth into a jar of thick pink paste and begins rubbing the spoon in small circular motions. This is plate powder, mixed fresh every morning. Jeweller's rouge, chalk and ammonia. Smells terrible, works beautifully. The smell does hit you now, sharp and chemical, burning the inside of your nose. You'll get used to it, Agnes says. Eventually you stop noticing. She hands you a cloth and a spoon and nods toward the pile. Every piece. No fingerprints, no tarnish, no spots. Mr. Finch inspects the silver before dinner service. If he finds so much as a smudge, we all hear about it. You pick up the spoon. Such a small thing, really. Just a bit of metal shape for scooping sugar. But in this house, even the smallest things carry enormous weight. A smudge on a teaspoon, a crease in a bedsheet, a fireplace that hasn't been properly blacked. These tiny failures add up. They reveal the hand behind the magic. They remind the family that their comfort requires effort, and that is absolutely unacceptable. So you polish. Spoon after spoon, fork after fork, your fingers cramping around the cloth, the ammonia burning your eyes. The pile shrinks slowly. Your reflection in the growing stack of finished pieces looks exhausted. Dark circles under the eyes, hair escaping from under your cap, a smear of something grey across one cheek. You barely recognise yourself anymore. You're doing well, Agnes says, not looking up from her own work. Better than the last girl. She cried on her second day and quit on her third. Couldn't handle the hours. You want to ask what happened to her, where she went, what becomes of girls who can't handle the hours. But you already know, don't you? The workhouse, the streets, a factory, if she's lucky, where the hours are shorter, but the machines can take your fingers. There are no good alternatives. That's why you stay. That's why everyone stays. The afternoon light is fading by the time you finish the silver. Your back is screaming. Your eyes are watering from the plate powder fumes. But the teaspoons are perfect. Every single one. Mr. Finch will have nothing to complain about. Agnes dismisses you with a nod. Kitchen next. Mrs. Hartley needs extra hands for dinner prep. Guests tonight, remember? Right. The guests. You'd almost forgotten. Some business associate of Lord Ashworth's coming for dinner with his wife, which means a formal meal, multiple courses, the good china, the best wine, an elaborate performance of wealth and taste, orchestrated entirely by the servants who will remain invisible throughout. The kitchen is chaos when you arrive. Mrs. Hartley, the cook, stands at the centre of it like a general commanding a battle. She's shouting orders at the kitchen maid, who's shouting orders at the scullery maid, who's too busy scrubbing pots to shout at anyone. Steam rises from half a dozen pots on the massive iron range. The air smells of roasting meat and simmering stock, and something sweet baking in the bread oven. And in the middle of it all, moving with surprising grace despite her considerable size, Mrs. Hartley orchestrates everything. A flick of her wrist sends the kitchen maid scurrying for more butter. A bark sends the scullery girl running for clean towels. She tastes, she stirs, she seasons, she adjusts, all without ever seeming to stop moving. You stand in the doorway uncertain. Nobody told you what to do once you got here. Mrs. Hartley spots you. Her eyes narrow. You, new girl, can you peel potatoes? Yes, ma'am. Then peel. She jerks her chin toward a mountain of potatoes sitting in a basket near the scullery door. All of them, thin skins, no eyes left behind. Annie will show you where. Annie. That must be the scullery maid. You find her in the scullery, up to her elbows in greasy dishwater, scrubbing at a pot that's bigger than she is. She's young, younger than you even, maybe 12 or 13, with raw red hands and a face that's permanently flushed from the heat of the water. Potatoes are there, she says without looking up. Peelings go in that bucket. Don't let Mrs. Hartley catch you wasting any flesh. She counts everything. Of course she does. Everyone in this house counts everything. You grab a knife and a potato and start peeling. The work is mindless, repetitive, soothing in its own way. Peel, turn, peel, turn, peel. The potato shrinks in your hand as the skin curls away in long brown ribbons. Behind you, Annie keeps scrubbing, the rhythm of her brush against the pot creating a kind of music. Scrub, scrub, dunk, repeat. How long have you been here, you ask, breaking the silence. Annie's brush pauses for just a moment. 18 months? Started when I was 11. Came from the workhouse. 11. She was 11 years old when she started this job, scrubbing pots and fetching coal and lighting fires before dawn, all at an age when you were still playing with dolls in your mother's cottage. Is it? You're not sure how to finish the question. Is it worth it? Is it bearable? Is it going to get better? It's a roof, Annie says simply. And food. 3 meals a day, more than I ever got before. Mrs. Hartley's hard, but she's fair. Doesn't hit like some cooks do. Doesn't steal our wages. Could be worse. Could be worse. That's the motto of every servant in every grand house across England. Could be worse. Could be the workhouse. Could be the streets. Could be the factories where children lose fingers to machinery and lungs to cotton dust. At least here you have a bed. At least here you eat. The bar is set so low it's practically underground. And still, somehow, you're grateful to clear it. You peel in silence for a while, the pile of potatoes slowly shrinking, the bucket of peeling slowly filling. From the kitchen you can hear Mrs. Hartley's voice, sharp and commanding, directing the elaborate dance of dinner preparation. The soup first, she's saying. Clear consomme. Has to be perfect. Lady Ashworth is showing off tonight. Then the fish course. Sole with white sauce. Then the roast. Beef, pink in the middle, or Lord Ashworth will have my head. Then the remove. Pheasant with bread sauce. Then the vegetables. Then the pudding. Trifle and fruit ices. Coffee to follow. 7 courses. For 4 people. Hours of preparation. Hours of cooking. Hours of plating and serving and clearing away. And at the end of it, most of the food will come back to the kitchen half-eaten, to be reheated and served to the servants tomorrow, or given to the poor at the back door. Waste, you think. Such waste. But then, what do you know? You've never sat at a table with 7 courses, never tasted sole or pheasant or trifle. The food that goes up those stairs exists in a world as foreign to you as the moon. You eat what comes back down, and you're grateful for it. The kitchen maid, a girl named Elsie with a round face and perpetually flour-dusted apron, appears in the scullery doorway. Mrs. Hartley wants those potatoes. Now. And you're to help me with a pastry once you're done. Pastry. You've never made pastry in your life. The bread at your mother's cottage was heavy and dark, made from whatever grain could be spared. Fancy pastry is as mysterious to you as the silver you polish this afternoon. But you nod and gather up the peeled potatoes in a large bowl. Into the kitchen, into the heat and chaos, dropping them on the work table where Mrs. Hartley is already reaching for them. Good, she grunts, the highest praise you've received all day. Now, pastry. Elsie is already at a marble slab, a mound of pale dough before her. She's working it with her hands, folding and pressing, in a motion that looks almost hypnotic. Puff pastry, she explains, for the vol au vents, appetizers for the soup course. Watch how I fold it. You need cold hands and a light touch. The butter has to stay in layers, see? That's what makes it puff up in the oven. You watch. You try to learn. When Elsie hands you a small piece of dough to practice with, you fold and press, trying to mimic her movements. The dough feels strange under your fingers, soft and cold and somehow alive. Not bad, Elsie says. You've got the hands for it. Keep practicing. It's the first compliment you've received about anything other than not being as terrible as the last girl. You hold on to it like a treasure. The afternoon wears on. The kitchen fills with smells that make your stomach growl, even though you just ate dinner a few hours ago. The roast beef goes into the oven, filling the air with the scent of rendering fat and searing meat. The consomme simmers on the back of the range, clear as glass and concentrated with flavour. The vegetables are prepped, the sauces started, the trifle assembled layer by careful layer, and through it all, Annie stays in the scullery, scrubbing. When a pot is used, she scrubs it. When a pan is dirtied, she scrubs it. When Mrs. Hartley needs clean utensils, Annie provides them. She is the bottom of the bottom, the lowest of the low, and her entire existence revolves around that stone sink and the endless parade of dirty dishes that passes through it. You help where you can, chopping onions until your eyes stream with tears, grinding spices in a mortar until your arm aches, running to the larder for butter, to the cellar for wine, to the pantry for sugar. Whatever Mrs. Hartley needs, you fetch. You're a pair of hands and a pair of feet, nothing more. Useful only as long as you're useful. By 6 o'clock the preparations are nearly complete. The soup is ready to be ladled. The fish is resting. The roast is coming out of the oven perfectly pink, just as Mrs. Hartley promised. The footmen have begun to appear, changed now into their formal livery, ready to carry the elaborate meal upstairs. You're not needed for the service itself. That's a job for the trained staff, the ones who know how to move silently, how to serve from the left and clear from the right, how to anticipate needs before they're spoken. You're just a housemaid, barely 3 weeks into the job. Your place is here, in the kitchen, watching the dishes come and go. But you catch a glimpse through the green baize door as it swings open to let a footman through. Just a flash of the corridor beyond, the one that leads to the dining room. Candlelight, the glitter of crystal. the low murmur of conversation, a world of warmth and beauty just a few steps away, utterly unreachable. Then the door swings shut and you're back in the kitchen, surrounded by steam and shouting and the clatter of pots. "Don't stand there gaping," Mrs. Hartley snaps. "Help Annie with those dishes. The first course is done, which means the second course starts. Move." You move. The dishes start coming down almost immediately. Soup bowls, still warm, the dregs of consomme clinging to their rims. Then fish plates, delicate bones scattered across them. Then the large platter that held the roast, now empty except for a puddle of pink juice and a few overlooked scraps. Annie is already at the sink, hands moving in the water, scrubbing with a speed born of long practice. You grab a drying cloth and start on the dishes she's already washed, working as fast as you can to keep up. The kitchen becomes a blur of motion. Dishes down, dishes washed, dishes up. Food plated and sent through the green baize door. Empty plates returned, scraps saved. Surfaces wiped clean before the next wave. It's an elaborate ballet, perfectly choreographed, and you're just one small dancer trying not to trip over your own feet. By the time the dessert goes up, your arms are shaking with fatigue. You've been working for 15 hours straight, with nothing but a few minutes here and there to shovel food into your mouth. The initial rush of nervous energy that carried you through the morning has long since faded, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion that makes even breathing feel like effort. But the work isn't done. It's never done. The guests don't leave until nearly 11. The family retires shortly after, their footsteps creaking on the floors above as they make their way to their bedrooms. Below stairs, the last of the dishes are being washed, the last of the pots scoured, the kitchen slowly returning to order. Mrs. Hartley releases you with a grunt and a wave of her hand. Breakfast at 5. Don't be late. You won't be late. You can't afford to be late. The back stairs seem steeper than they did this morning. Your legs wobble on each step. Your hands, raw from dishwater and plate powder, throb with every heartbeat. The attic room, when you finally reach it, is cold and dark and absolutely perfect. Mary is already in bed, her breathing slow and even. You don't bother with the basin of water. Don't bother changing into your nightdress. You just strip off your shoes and your apron and collapse onto the narrow mattress, pulling the thin blanket up to your chin. Tomorrow will be the same, and the day after, and the day after that. This is your life now.